Help me get my drawing for my this. It's there, sorry. Apologies. Is this live? Oh shit, we're live, baby. Well, obviously it's Baddie Denalva up in here, Mischief Managed Media Reactions. Now, as always, let me just give you the little house rules. Make sure that you're liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing. Make sure that you're here every single week because we're going to be dropping reaction videos with a lot of spice every single day. Now, today we are going to be looking at Kids Gone Wild. As we know, there's been a lot of issues with young people behaving badly, and we're going to know really whose fault is this. Is it the parents? Is it schools? Is it society? Is it the kids? Who is to be held accountable for what we're experiencing right now? As I do that, I hope that you guys take a little moment to enjoy my little puzzle. I am trying something new, I need to kind of work something whilst I'm trying to think and give you all that spice. So anyways, let's get straight into it. We're going to start with Super Nanny. Let's see what she's saying. Okay, so for those of you who've not watched Super Nanny, this is a show where the lady would go to the houses of the families that had some of the worst behaved kids that you could think of. Now, it always shocked me because I came from an African household, meaning that I could never hit. If I ever decide to hit my mom at the age of 4, I will be done out here. That's not something that I've seen any of my sisters do. That is not something that usually is acceptable within the African household. Although I am hearing that this is something that is happening now a little bit more in households just in the, I'm guessing the UK, because, you can't hit kids, you can't give them corporal punishment. So it's not to say you need to beat your children, but I'm just saying something has been going. Yeah, like this is the thing. I don't understand what parents think they need to do with kids. All you got to do is say, listen, you got 2 choices right now. Either you eat your crisps the way that I'm telling you and just don't have them at all. If they start screaming, shouting, and do all these things that I told you, and then put them somewhere, like put them in their room, just tell them off, like, parents, take control. What is happening? How is a 4-year-old even? Of course it's your voice. How dare this child try and beat his mom for over a packet of crisps, bro? Listen, are you mad? And the mom saying, no, oh my God, some people are real tough. Listen, I am not a parent. I just put that out there, but I don't have to be a parent to exercise my authority over a child that is misbehaving like this. There is no way anyone that junior to me is ever going to put hands on me. Are you crazy? Even just the restraint enough to let them know, don't play that game with me because I'm 10 million times stronger than you. Not only that, I'm an adult. I'd rather die for my respect than that little child beat me up. Are you crazy? I'm sorry, but these I can't lie. I'm looking at Super Nanny's face and she's saying, boy, I bet you even she wants to put hands on him. Are you crazy? My Lord, Super Nanny's about to slap this bitch in the face. Like, what are you doing? Your kid is beating you up and you're just there like a victim. Boiling right now. I don't understand how a child gets to this stage, to this level of behavior. This is extremely concerning. And then what is worse is to think, what kind of adult is he going to grow up to become? What kind of person is he going to be if this is the behavior that he's grown up thinking is normal? What kind of creature have you created for society where he has no discipline, no respect for authority, no rules, and he's fully in control, not only aggressively, but also emotionally manipulative? Wow. This is very scary. I have to say, yeah, we can talk, we can laugh, I don't know how people are going to be feeling looking at a child behaving like this, but as much as we want to kind of, the kid, no, we need to be worried about the consequences in the future. Forget about just the parents and how useless they are to allow this to happen. It's the future. This kid is going to be a nightmare. In fact, I would love to find out who you are. If you're watching this and you recognize yourself from this, please let yourself be known. But I do pray that Super Nanny did change you. Okay, so this one here is quite a stressful one because I have to say it's the most... Parents, your child's behavior, and I can tell you this because I focus on child behavior as part of my job, okay? And one thing that I fully understand with children is nothing is actually a question of do you want to do something. You present them with choices, and choices have consequences. If you want something, these are the terms. Do you want it? Yes or no? If you don't want that, this is your other choice. Don't give them too much room to have freedom of power of choices, because you need to guide them. You don't need to control them, but you need to guide them, and you need to guide their behavior. Now, this kid, are you crazy? The amount of enabling of his aggression the mom allowed him to do, the emotional manipulation, like this lady's it's almost like she's probably never seen young people around her before, because that is the most obvious thing to see. The child is manipulating you, the coughs, the this, that, and all it took is for you to ignore him, and everything then stopped. After an hour and a half, he was done. Do that 1, 2, 3 times, or do you really think your child is going to continue to act in this way? I'm very appalled, and this is the thing. This lady is not necessarily an anomaly. You know, there's a lot of children that you even see them acting out in public and things like that. I do not know a child in my family, even as a baby, as a, you know, the terrible twos or something like this, right? Not even at those stages the kids would ever throw a tantrum in public or even at home. I'm telling you, this sort of behavior is not something that I'm used to seeing. I see, well, in close proximity to me, but I see it a lot on the street. A lot of chavvy parents sometimes allow these kids to behave in that way. And I think those are the ones that grow up to become the football hooligans. You know, them ones. But anyways, on that note, I'm going to sign it off there. I'm going to try and see if I can find more kids acting wild all over the internet. And, oh, I'm not. Okay, actually, that's a lie. I'm not signing off. I've got another video here lined up. Hold on, let me line this up right now, because we need to address these kids. But I want to know whether or not this is a problem that is just in the UK, or if it is a problem that is all over the world, okay? So I'm going to take you overseas. I'm going to take you across the pond to the US of A with Dr. Phil. I wonder what this is going to be about, because Dr. Phil does deal with a lot of crazy people.
Of our country's workforce, many business owners fear we are in serious trouble.
As people here on this earth, we are not meant to work for our money.
Do you get what they call hungry?
Pardon? Oh, Dr. Phil. Okay. That's a sad one.
It's a very good question, but what we have seen in the last...
So we're not going to do Dr. Phil because we don't want to get this life taken down, of course, you know, copyright strikes and all of that. So we're going to stay away from that. We're going to bring it back to London, okay? And we brought it back here because, again, there's a really serious pandemic or epidemic, or whichever is the right term to use, of youth crime, okay? Youth crime that involves stabbing, theft, you know, just aggression and violence towards each other and society. So we're going to try and see, obviously, what are the news saying, because this seems to be a report on the police and community organisers updating following the murder of a 15-year-old boy in Croydon. So it's quite a serious one, okay? And this is not an abnormality. This is something that we're starting to see become a lot more common. And yeah, and usually it's going to be black children, perhaps sometimes the Asians, but mostly it's the black kids that this is kind of about. So let's see what's on.
18 months, especially with the local Met, Croydon's local Met, they've now reached out to the community at large. They've had young people that are not necessarily from the affluent communities, young people from local communities around here like Thornton Heath, South Norwood, who are now training the Met on local policing, how to work collaboratively to engage young people. Historically, we've had many breakdowns due to stop and...
That's actually a really good one. I think it's a very smart initiative for there to be a connection between the police and the youth, simply because I think there's a huge misunderstanding between the community and the police that serve the community and that are there to protect and enforce law. Because I think that the community, on the one hand, believes that the police are all corrupt racists and they're just out there to get them. And on the other hand, the police are the ones that are dealing with the most horrifying of situations where they're going to see young 15-year-old boys crying and begging them that they don't want to die and they'll die on the scene. So what I mean by that is the police are also traumatized and they've had to kind of use this pattern recognition as even a mode of survival in the communities that they're meant to serve. And again, the community is riddled with crime, is riddled with a lot of trauma that is causing people to act in ways that are just not worthy of a peaceful society, and the police are the ones dealing with this firsthand. So once there is that collaboration and that understanding between the two sides, perhaps then we can expect real change, because unless the police know what young people are going through, and then unless the young people know actually what the police are dealing with directly, I don't think that there's going to be any understanding or any change.
But we now have young people from Croydon working with the Met, training the Met, being paid to train the Met in how to police locally without increasing further tensions.
Okay, that's good. So the young people that are collaborating with the Met, they're getting paid, which is, I think, quite important, because ain't nobody out here doing work for free. And if you give them a reward for the good work that they're doing to provide the police with knowledge and, I guess, wisdom of what actually happens within the communities that they're trying to protect, I think that's a worthy move forward. Do I have anything against that in any way, shape or form? No, not really. I think that's a good one. I hope that creates some change. The only thing that we need to kind of understand is how do we measure the results of these kind of initiatives, because sometimes they'll just be happening. They don't measure, can't do proper reports on it, and then it just goes down the drain, and it's just going to be funding going into something that is not going to make real change. But, you know, well done. That's progress.
Thank you, Reverend.
That was so awkward. All right, Auntie, speak now.
First, and the name of the church that you come from.
Okay, my name's Pastor Beryl St James. I'm a community pastor, street pastor. I work in Thornton Heath, West Croydon, Central Croydon, and pretty much anywhere that there's footwork.
May I just say as well quickly, I mean, I don't know here who has actually been to Croydon, okay? I don't want to be rude or anything like this, but Croydon is the sort of place that I go to, and whenever I have been there, and I don't go that often at all, because first of all, it's long to get to, it's really far away. But Croydon is the place that ever since the first time I stepped foot in Croydon, I felt a sense of like, this feels like the abandoned city. Okay, they've got nice buildings as you drive in, like they're tall in the city. It looked like it would have been somewhere that had the potential to become a nice metropolis, like similar to how Central London could have been. There was some investment done in London, in Croydon for sure, from the Box Park to all these high-rise buildings to even the Whitgift Centre. You know, it's got something going on. However, the atmosphere, the feeling that you get when you get there is quite dark. I don't like going to Croydon, I can't lie. Croydon is the sort of place that I feel like bad things actually do happen. And then it goes to show also that I'm not wrong in saying this, and I'm not kind of being discriminatory, simply for the fact that also Croydon's council was bankrupt, if not still is bankrupt, meaning that there's been a lot of horrible things happening there. There's a lot of misuse of funds, misuse of power and leadership that has caused the whole council to go broke, to file for bankruptcy. So already you can tell that there's something going on in that place that is allowing for a lot of things like this to happen. This is the murder of a 15-year-old boy. There was also the girl that was, may she rest in peace, and may this boy also rest in peace. It's a really sad situation. But also there was a stabbing of a girl in a bus stop in Croydon. You know, Croydon seems to be a place that is quite notorious for a lot of bad things happening. Okay, so just putting that into context.
And in your work, do you often speak to parents who are worried about their children?
Absolutely. It's a main part of the community programme in speaking with the parents. In, for example, getting parents to find out who their children's friends are. Who are they meeting? Are they attending school? What is if your child comes in wearing a pair of Balenciagas, where did your child get them?
You see, but this is the thing, okay? What this pastor is saying, it's not actually a genius move. as a parent, how are you seeing your child coming into the house with the new things when you didn't give them the money to get that and they don't have a job? So where do you think these things popped out of? Magically out of thin air? No, that's the biggest red flag. You immediately question, where did you get that from? And you don't accept a lie. Anything that they say, ask for the details. And if they start stuttering or they refuse to test out, just don't ask me these questions. Have a bigger red eye, have a bigger eye, a closer eye on them. This is a bigger red flag, okay? Kids do not have any other way of getting new things unless somebody has gifted it to them. But why would they give them expensive items? Maybe if you want to give somebody a gift, you might buy them like maybe, I don't know, a little something. You're not going to spend more than £20. Kids don't have that kind of money. And if they do, now you need to kind of keep an eye out on them. Either their parents are rich, which in these cases or in these places, that's not going to be the case. So where else could they get the money from? Elders, what does that mean? The olders, sorry. What does that mean? That means that they're being groomed, okay? Either they're probably being groomed or they may have stolen it, okay? But whatever the case, unless they got a super rich friend that you know about, there's no other way that they got the stuff. So how are these not conversations or things that parents are paying attention to, which leads me to believe that parents are just not paying attention. Parents are sleeping on their kids. That's all this means to me, because it makes absolutely no sense that there are kids in certain situations where the crime or the unfortunate incident could have been prevented if parents had been paying attention and intervened nice and early. And this is the thing. I do understand that a lot of parents are perhaps feeling overwhelmed, that a lot of parents feel like it's just maybe, single parents. They feel like it's just them, or that the kids have now overpowered them. This is why now you have to find ways to be part of the community. Whether you go to a church, whether you enroll yourself in some sort of community initiative, go to a class or something and start making friendships and making connections with people that can support you to put your kid in his place. If you have a son and you are a single mother, you need to start going to church and start to find the big brothers in there that can come and help you deal with your son, because then your son will know that even if he knows that he can overpower you physically, there are other members of the community, men, that will put him in his place. That's it. You people are very afraid of becoming more intimidating than their own children, but it's through that kind of authoritative intimidation that children stay in their place forever, okay? You don't need to scare your child, but your child needs to know deep down that if he wants to push it to that level, things are going to go really, really wrong. And that's with both boys and girls. You need to start building that village formation around you, because otherwise, this is what's going to happen. Either your child is going to get erased or they're going to be doing the erasing, but whatever the case, you lose. That's the thing.
Get more involved, speak with your child, find out what's going on in their lives.
Why is this
I
not
know
common
we all
sense?
have to work, we all have duties to fulfill, but you cannot as a parent think that it's okay to leave the state to continually look after your child. We've got to get more involved.
And do you think
Yes,
the onus
Auntie.
really is then on parents
I
rather
second
than
that.
schools and other services?
I think it's something that has to happen together.
Why do they keep looking at schools and other services? This is another thing that annoys me the most. Every single time people are trying to look at the people that haven't got actual control over your kids. The school is there to provide a service to your child, and that is to educate them and equip them with skills that will allow them to survive in the professional world, in life. Schools are not there to actually bring your children up. You see? Once your child is out of the school, once your child is at home in the evening, now that is your job, and your job is to debrief. Your job is to understand what is happening. Your job is to know how was school. Your job is to find out what grades are they getting. Your job is to catch up with what they did. It's almost like you're having an employee that's going out there to complete his shift at school. Once they get home, you ask them, what happened? What did you do? Feedback. But parents are not doing this. And I think obviously there's been a lot of changes in society where people are not spending time together the way that they used to do before. Like, for example, when you have dinner around the table together, that's a great moment to catch up with your children. But that is a you problem. That's a you fault. Because how are you also not creating certain routines within your home where you have family time? That is your responsibility as a parent. As a parent, if you're not kind of bringing your children up to have dinner around the table, to understand that there's that social moment within a family, like dinner time, on weekends, activities that you do together, that it doesn't mean you need to go anywhere. No, these days what happens? Kids get home, they get on their phone, they go put their food in the microwave and they go eat it in their room. Does that make any sense? Do you even see your children? The majority of the day they're in school and they're at home, you don't even care about it. So what I don't understand what are parents doing. A lot of them are sitting down and doing the same thing, heating up their food and going to Netflix and chill, or doom scrolling on their phones and not paying attention to their kids. These times their kids don't go to bed until 5 a.m. to wake up at 6 a.m. to go to school. They don't sleep throughout the whole day and they start getting insomnia. They start feeling depressed and anxious. Things start going wrong because you're not even paying attention. You have no rules. You give them phones and access to said phones unregulated for whatever periods of time. You need to confiscate your kids' phones at night, perhaps, because they need to go to sleep or they need to stop looking at nonsense. It's in the dark hours that bad things happen. Kids are very much exposed to violence. They're very much exposed to sex, to a lot of things that they just shouldn't be seeing. And parents are not paying attention because they're also doing nonsense on their phones. You know, like, ugh. Stop looking at schools and start looking within the home to understand where you are then letting your child down by not paying attention to what is happening in their lives.
It's something that needs to work together. We are looking at the amount of children that...
And sorry, it's something that needs to work together. So basically the pastor is saying that schools and the parents, so the institution and home, they need to work together. Now, let me tell you what the problem is. The problem is that the same parents that want so much support and they want to save their children, they want the best for their children, those parents don't respect the institution. Those parents are looking at the institution to do something about the problem, but they don't want to solve the problem because they cause the problem themselves as well. Parents, I remember when I was younger, when I was in school, if there was a call home from school, you know that you're going to go home to problems. Your parents actually cared about your behavior in school because they don't want to look bad to the school. They don't want to look like the parents that don't have control over their children's behavior or discipline and things like this. So if you got a phone call home, it was a big deal. Nowadays, it's not a big deal. Nowadays, you will call a parent and parents will tell you to shut up. Why are you wasting my time? It's your job to take care of my child. Deal with it. Are you crazy? And this is the thing. Schools and parents have got to work together, but there needs to be a respect for the institution because it is not easy being an educator. It is not easy having to deal with trauma of young people that are going through adolescence and puberty. And we're dealing with it en masse. It's not like you're dealing with just one child. There's so many children that the parents themselves need to now go and understand. Schools need support. We need to respect the school so that the school can have the authority that it needs to have to be able to also discipline and also guide our children in school. But without parental support, nothing is going to happen because the kids feel empowered by the parents to continue to disrespect education, to continue to disrespect the rules, the institutions, schools themselves, staff, and each other. So I'm very inclined to just look at parents and feel really disappointed with how they're, allowing their children to get away with murder.
Excluded from schools. When you exclude a child, where are you putting them? Are you now moving them out of the classroom into a park? There is not enough follow-up work that sits around.
So, now they're talking about exclusions. Exclusions are now through the roof. There's been, they've been hitting record numbers in terms of how many kids are getting excluded from school, how many dropouts there have been. And this is what the lady said. She said, so are you excluding these children, taking them out of the classroom and putting them in the park? I'm sorry, but parents, why is your child in a park? Why has your child been excluded from school and they're just going anywhere? Now, this is the thing. There are the extenuating circumstances where these are children that are perhaps in care. These are the children that are being looked after and things like that. But even then, social workers, why are you getting paid so much where you're not being able to support these children, to keep an eye on them? Okay. And then if that does get to be the case, then we need to also understand, where do these children come from and where are the responsibilities of those parents? And if they fail to fulfill those responsibilities, there need to be consequences for those parents, because essentially we all have a responsibility to ensure that we are not destroying the world for the future. Okay. It's the same way that it's not okay to unalive somebody. It's the same way that it is not okay to infect your child with so much trauma that they end up being potential liabilities in society. So all of these situations that are happening, I've got a lot of sympathy for people, but at some point we need to get real. The sympathy is now turning to excuses, and it's turning into enablement, enabling people to get away with behaviors that are just detrimental to society as a whole. As you can see now, exclusions are a massive problem. Youth crime are a massive problem. This is not just anomalies anymore. This is becoming the general, which allows me to say that if this is becoming the general, now parents and people that are having children need to have more support, but also more consequences for bad parenting. I'm just saying.
Exclusion work. There are children that there are flags and signposts that you can see that there is trouble going on here. And I appreciate that finances and everybody's got things to do, but there are some red flags that come up. And part of the work that we do, for example, if it's school time and you drive past a park and there are 15 children that you can roughly work out, they're aged between 13 and 15, there's no teacher there, what are they doing in the park? You have to ask the questions. Part of the work that we do within the church, and I was just explaining on Boxing Day, got a call from a mother, please come to my house.
That's good.
Got to the house, she's pulled out one of the biggest knives ever. As the church, we're here to help to collect some of these weapons. We're here to support you. It's not just about hallelujah. We're on the floor.
But now this is the thing, okay? This is the thing. It is amazing that these weapons are being taken, okay? I like the fact that the church is involved in supporting. This is true community work. The church is involved in supporting parents, where parents are feeling empowered enough and trusting enough that they can call up and say, you need to come over and collect this weapon that the child has, obviously, that she has found the child stashed somewhere in the house. Now, here comes the issue. Fine. So the church comes, takes that away. But what happens next? What happens after that? Because even though the mother has found this, unless the church has got programs that then follow up on children that have been found to have been stashing weapons, unless the church has got that type of program in place, then this is nothing. Essentially, all that you've done is you've taken something away from somebody and you dashed it so that the kid doesn't get in trouble for actually having a weapon that is illegal. So then what are we doing? Do we still continue to enable that behavior? Because all he's going to do is go find another one because my mom found one. Yes, the mom will cry, the mom will feel upset, but there need to be consequences to this sort of thing. So I think perhaps maybe there must be some sort of community service. I don't know. People need to get a bit more creative in how they're going to kind of bring people to deal with the consequences of even committing a crime that has not actually been made known to the police yet. These kids cannot be stashing weapons in their house and then the church comes and dashes them. There needs to be consequences. I'm so sorry. This is the main problem with the youth right now. There are no serious and true consequences to bad behavior, to even just flirting with the devil a little bit more. Why is it a kid holding a big Rambo knife at home? And then would the church come and dispose of it and then not say anything because you don't want to scare off other kids or other parents from doing this? No, they need to talk. This is the main problem also with the community. There's not enough snitching. If more people were talking about the amount of kids or the amount of children that are holding weapons or holding drugs for somebody else, yeah, if they spoke out, that would actually make a massive change because you don't need to prosecute the children, but you do need to expose the behavior that is wrong so that the elders also know they can't approach kids no more because everybody's snitching. The parents keep singing, the parents keep talking, and they keep saying, my kid has got weapons, my kid has got drugs, police come and get it. The police just needs to come and confiscate and give that and show that presence as a deterrent, where that you know that as a little kid, the police knows your house and the police knows that you have held weapons. The police knows that you have held drugs. The police are aware of you, which means that you're not going to be doing operations at home no more. And which means that you also know that you're probably under observation, or that you just, the fact that they know who you are, you already know you're not going to be messing around too much because it's getting too hot. That's the thing. Snitching doesn't necessarily mean that your kid is going to go to jail, but snitching is going to be able to allow the police to create a deterrent against other kids doing the same thing, because they will know I cannot hold a weapon at home, because even though I'm not going to go to jail, the police are going to know that I hold weapons. Therefore, they're going to know I'm affiliated. Come on now, parents.
We're here to help signpost you, give you instructions, help in getting your children and keeping them safe.
I guess if a parent sees something suspicious or finds a knife in their child's backpack, I suppose they might not first think of going to the police because that could bring their child into trouble. I mean, what would you say, what advice would you give in that sense?
Good question.
So you find the knife or you see something that isn't quite right. If you don't want to speak with the police, and traditionally we've had some issues around that, but I will tell you things are getting better. But there are organisations and people like myself give us a call. Across Croydon, we have many different organisations. There are intervening grassroots systems that are available. Get in touch with somebody. It might be that you making that call saves the life of your child and somebody else's.
Right.
And finally,
That's right.
when something tragic like this happens in a community, what is the sort of questions or reflections that people have?
I think people often fail to recognise the ripple effect of this, because it may look as if it is one child, but the effects that happen with that one child, it's not just that family. That family will grieve, there's devastation, there's heartache, there's pain. But for all the other families that are connected, so that child may be your nephew, might be your cousin, might be your friend. It goes on and on and on.
It's a deep
and
trauma.
then with people like myself who are doing the counselling, we're counselling the family, working with the family, we're working with the police. But there are other families who will sit and grieve also, and we don't always see that. So it isn't just the death of one, it affects so many people.
Yes, because this is the thing. This is a mass trauma that the whole community is experiencing. You can't expect this to be happening and for young people not to be scared. In fact, I would probably argue that a lot of young people now are holding weapons not for not as an aggressor, but as a form of defense, because they're understanding. Think about it. If you're in a school where somebody got stabbed, okay, but you're a good kid, you're not involved in anything, how scared are you going to be? How afraid, how anxious are you going to be to go to school knowing that these things are happening right next to you? You see, this is the sort of trauma that is going to infect everybody, because every single kid at this point, especially in London, every single kid knows at least one person, or at least a person that knows a person has been stabbed. Maximum 2 degrees of separation, not even 6. That's the thing. We've had children that have been stabbed in buses, in bus stops, in shops. One just the other day, a boy got finally charged for, and he's been put in jail for 16 years for stabbing a peer in school. In school, he stabbed the kid in school. Think about how things are getting so deep, and parents are still concerned about, oh, but I don't want my child to get in trouble. Bro, you'd rather your child gets a nice slap on the wrist for holding a weapon than for him to actually use the weapon and to traumatize thousands of kids around him. This is not okay. This is not the sort of thing that a teenager should be looking. This is the most anxious driven sort of generation that I can think of. And think about then the parents that they're going to become. Think about who they're going to become as adults. Think about all of these things. So parents of these teens that are in this current situation, please, you need to speak up a lot more. It's not fair.
Morning everyone, my name is Alex Murray. I'm a commander in the Met Police responsible for getting violence down in London. Thanks very much for coming today. First and foremost, I can't imagine the... Guy.
I'll tell you why I feel sorry for this guy just quickly, yeah? Think about it. You are like the biggest op right now, because Mr. Commander Alex Murray, you said you're the person that is in charge of bringing down youth crime in London. That's a big boy job. I'm sorry, that is almost impossible to complete successfully. I can't lie. So yes, well done. And I'm sorry that you have to have that job. And I hope that you're not corrupt. And I hope that you actually do really well with this, because the youth deserve it. They deserve a fair chance.
The families of loved ones, two who have died last night, are feeling right now. It must be incredibly raw. And I know the thoughts of all the people I work with in the Met are with the mums, dads and families and brothers and sisters of the young people who died last night.
And then also another problem with the Met Police, I'll tell you right now, okay, having had first-hand experience talking about these specific topics, okay, bureaucracy is the biggest enemy of change, okay? And what I mean by that is you have to follow the book. You have to say and do things as the book says and does it. Okay, why is that a problem? That is a problem because you don't allow yourself to think as a human when your job is to deal with humans. What he just said was a textbook answer. That is bureaucracy. I do understand that there needs to be a certain level of bureaucracy to keep standards and to ensure that there's no kind of scandals and this professionalism and all these things. But we are getting to a stage where bureaucracy is the enemy of progress with things like this. They're still talking about all of this stuff. They're still investing so much money into stop and search instead of building actual centers where kids can go to and you can monitor them and you can get access to their details and see what's happening without you having to do stop and search and make them feel more rebellious against you. Why doesn't the police or why don't all of these people in charge of the system start to think, okay, how about we befriend them and we lure them into a position or into a situation where we can actually monitor them? Give them benefits so that they can be happy to be somewhere instead of being idle and looking for trouble. These things wouldn't be happening. Instead, we have these people that have got the most receding hairline ever talking nonsense like a bloody robot on things where our kids are dying. They're being stabbed. They're being, traumatized at such a young age. This is not okay. And it's spreading and it's getting worse and worse and worse because don't forget that social media is also here to allow this to be amplified beyond our control. It's ridiculous. The amount of videos that I see of kids going viral for the worst of things. But guess what? They find that exciting. Don't forget, notoriety when you're a teenager is very, very exciting. So we need to kind of battle that by giving kids better things to do, by allowing them to be in environments where they enjoy it, that they don't even realize that they're being cured of these traumas. Come on now. Seriously, just give me a bad boy job like this and you'll see how I'll change the world. Then I'm for president.
I do want to reassure you and say that violence and tackling violence and youth violence is our number one priority in London.
Shut up, Rev.
Right from dealing with county lines through to taking money and drugs and guns off the streets, through to being in the right place at the right time, policing hotspots of violence.
Shut up, bruv.
And then getting upstream, we've got hundreds of police officers who work in schools, all trying.
Shut up, bro. You're talking about county lines. You're talking about taking weapons. Bro, no one's talking about connecting with the youth and really understanding what the problem is and solve it from the root. This is what I'm saying. How about the police start saying, okay, cool. First of all, get rid of the uniforms and open a center where you can bring more kids close to you. Obviously, there was a community guy that said that, the kids have started going into the police to train the Met Police and all these things. But no, you can give them some power, but that is not the solution. The solution is open a space where you make them feel welcome and safe. And you're going to see how things actually change, where they can really talk about real stuff and use community figures that they like, that they look up to help you. I don't know if the Met Police has actually been doing the outreach to the real community leaders the way that they should. At this point, the Met Police should be working with every single rapper in London. And if you need to pay them, bloody pay them what they're worth for them to share the right message. Start building certain relationships for it to actually go the right way. Start employing people that can speak to this side of population, this side of the world, this side of, that you don't know very well. Pay the right people to connect with them. Start working on a branding and PR strategy that you do not have. You're all just stiff buffoons that don't know how to connect to people. I'm telling you, the biggest problem with the Met Police is that they don't understand the same people, the demographic of people that they believe are the problem. They don't understand them. So if you don't understand them, you don't understand what the problem is and you don't know what the solution is. So in this case, yes, I've been getting onto the parents, fair enough. But then at the same time, given the fact that we live in the society that we live in, where parents are expected to work full time to provide for their families, then if the police are getting paid thousands and thousands and thousands of times ridiculous salaries to be patrolling the streets and going to the crime hotspots, the funds there are being misused, for sure. Don't get them to be doing patrols. Get them to open up a center where they serve warm, nice food, cool food for the kids, some burgers or whatever, healthy though, and see how it goes. Give every single child access to that center in one meal for anyone under the age of 16 or up to the age of 16 or even up to the age of 18 as well. Actually 18, because 18, then you turn into adult. Up to the age of 18, you're welcome in our center. We've got FIFA, we've got Fortnite, we've got a free meal where you get a voucher, we've got all of this. But what we need in return is we need your parents' contacts, and they need to be able to sign a permission form for you to enter. So basically, you create a membership system where we know every single kid that walks in there, we know who their parents are, and we know where they live, and this has been verified. But guess why this will happen and why kids will actually go on to that membership? Because it's a cool place to chill. It's got loads of stuff that they want to enjoy, like games and stuff like that. It's run by cool people. And sometimes you're even putting on community initiatives, Met Police, where you get some of their favorite rappers to come and perform at the center so that every kid wants to have a membership there, because not only they get opportunity, get to chill and have fun and have free food, they also get to meet their celeb friends. Bro, the Met Police has got so much money that they could be doing this all over the place. Do you know how many abandoned buildings there are? This is what leads me to believe that genuinely leadership is riddled with nonsense people there. That's the thing. This is on the police. I defend education wholeheartedly, but the police, no. The police, I know that you guys have a problem because you're misusing funds. There's too many people getting their pockets larger every single year, but that money should have been going to these things. We need more cool youth centers. And again, this is a challenge for anybody that is watching. If you're a plug me in and let me give you a little trial of the ideas I have to revolutionize the youth. They're not ready for that. It's making me sound a little bit too much like a commie, where I understand that the solution's in the youth. But anyway.
It's hard to tackle violence at its causes. Now, as a result of that effort, and with partners and with community groups and with the local authority, we have seen over the last few years significant reductions in violence, in knife crime and gun crime. But not...
Lie! You've seen significant reduction. Do you know what significant reduction means? Significant reduction means that is anything from like 30% to 50% and above. That's what is something significant. Significant means that it was sizable enough for it to make a huge change. It's very visible. That is not the truth. Let the stats speak. Let the stats say whatever they want to say. But as far as I'm concerned, from what I know, from what I've heard, from what I see, nothing really has changed. If anything, it's getting worse. Okay, gun violence has got much worse, to the point that there's been drive-by shootings outside bloody train stations. Okay, there's been more shootings recently than I've heard being reported before. So we're updating from knife crime to gun crime. Not only that, I also very recently sat on a panel with a paramedic for London's air ambulance. Okay, and he said that before they didn't get many calls for gunshots, but now he's one of the ones that is the most requested. That and stabbings. I think every 3 calls, 2 of them are stabbings or guns. So this guy here is just talking. He's just talking. What the police will say and what the ambulance service will say will be completely different. In fact, that's going to be my challenge. I'm going to start looking at the different reports that the ambulance and, emergency services do versus what the police does. Because I think the police are trying, especially after the case of report where, that it was found or that the police are misogynistic, racist, homophobes and all these sort of things, right? Essentially, they're corrupt assholes. Ever since that case of report, the police has been trying really, really hard to clean up their image. But guess what the problem is? You cannot clean up your image with words. You got to clean up your image with action. So talking about a significant reduction in crime is just words. The action is not there. What have you put in place other than increase stop and search to ensure that actually there is some change? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Yeah, you got a couple of kids that are going to go and train people in the Met Police. But these kids are going to go and train people in the Met Police. They're obviously not the kids that even know what the street truly is about. They're the ones that will be victims of the street. So you're telling the police, you're teaching the police to connect with victims rather than connect with actually the perpetrators. You don't got no gangsters there. You don't got no YGs there training the Met Police. And you never have that because you haven't built the first thing that you need, which is a space where the youth can willingly come connect to you, not them coming to your space and train you. No, that's nonsense. That's just stuff to look good for the camera, but your action is not there. Met Police, you're a big problem. I don't like you.
No.
Actually, no, I take that back because I'm not going to be a hater, but I don't like what you're doing right now. I don't like what this guy is saying. I think it's just a lot of was, like there's no substance to anything that you've said so far. Everything is just the same textbook answer that I'm sure that if I put 10 different police, representatives speaking about a crime with youth, they're all going to say the same thing. Oh, our thoughts are with the families of the youth. We are working very hard to continue to tackle youth crime. We're focusing on county lines. We're focusing on weapons and, patrolling hot zones. And, it's shut up.
For teenagers, we have had an increase in homicides. And I guess my message today, other than to speak...
Oh, so he did say the truth. I think I spoke too soon. He did say that there's been a significant increase in homicides. So basically kids killing each other. So, wow, that's crazy. So why is it that then that crime is increasing with the younger years? Isn't that the most alarming thing ever? I have to say, that's got me shook.
Families and friends of those that London has lost tonight is to say you cannot carry knives in London. This is what happens when knives are carried, and we all have a role in relation to tackling knife crime. Anybody can ring Crime Stoppers, an independent charity, and call and say this person's got a knife or someone's carrying a knife, and action will be taken. We take about 400 knives a month off the streets.
So again, fine. What action will be taken? That's the question. Don't leave it ambiguous, because without you actually being specific about what your intentions are, nobody is going to want to call because they don't know what might happen as a result. So what are the actions that will happen? Are you going to come and have restorative conversations with the potential criminals or the people at risk? Or are you going to come and penalize them? What is the action? That's the main problem. You don't know. You can't tell us. So no one is going to trust you. This ambiguity is the easiest way for people to suspect anyone. So let's go.
From young people who are carrying knives, but in actual fact, everybody has a role to play here and is playing. And I just encourage anybody who knows if someone is carrying a knife, tell them not to. We know people get hurt if you carry knives. It's not something you should carry if you're fearful. If you're fearful, don't carry a knife. That's the main comment. I'd encourage everybody to get involved. You've seen how we work with community groups to tackle violence. This is a local problem, a family problem, a community problem, a police problem, a local authority problem. We've all got a role to play to make sure that we reduce these tragedies that are taking place.
Fair enough.
We have no intelligence, and it's so early at the moment, not really free to talk about the detail of the two investigations.
That was not a good answer.
Teenage homicides in London. I appreciate what you just said about everyone having to work together, but clearly Met needs to do something different, because you're repeating that same message, but murders just keep on rising.
Thank you, sister. This is great journalism. She heard the nonsense. She heard the waffle. She heard the Disney story that they tried to sell you. And then she said, all right, cool. You've been saying this forever, but nothing has changed, which means that surely whatever it is that you're doing is not working. Surely you should be doing something different. Great answer. Great rebuttal. She's paying attention. Thank you, sister.
So the tragedy is teenage murders are up. Total murder rate and knife crime is down. And we are doing a lot of different things. We're investing in prevention, putting officers in schools, as I mentioned.
Again, he's already he's already repeated the same thing. Knife crime and murders are low, but there's an increase on teenagers. That doesn't mean anything. You can say that adults are killing less, but kids are killing more. It balances it out. Like, I don't understand where there's a benefit in that. So how is it that you're solving crimes with the oldest, but you don't know what to do with the youth? That's the thing. Like, shut up. You're just, I know that you want the Met to look good, but I think it would be much better if the Met said, listen, we are struggling and we're trying to figure it out. we are doing our best and we're going to continue to try our best, but things are actually kind of bad at this point. And all we can do is urge parents to help us. Parents, speak to us. Parents, don't be afraid. We have to take action because it could be your child next. Duh. Like, who's doing PR for the Met, bro? Call me. Call me.
We do a thing called problem solving, where we work in a particular area where violence might spike and we go, what are the causes here? And we work with partners to deal with those causes of crime. And things like county lines, which does affect teenagers so much more.
Bro, stop talking about county lines. Stop talking about county lines. Ain't nobody going crunch when they're stabbing each other there on the street, bro. That's not the main problem. That's the thing. The main problem is that little kids are being used as runners right here on the streets under everybody's nose. You're talking about country lines when we're talking about kids getting stabbed in Croydon, kids getting stabbed in bus stops. Why are we still talking about country lines? Leave the country lines alone for a second, because those country lines will actually fall apart if they ain't got runners on the street to sell things for them and hold things for them in the metropolis. Like, what is wrong with you? Leave the country lines alone, man. Stress.
Thousands of people with county lines, both here in London and people exporting drugs to some of the towns around the UK. So a huge amount of effort is going on with thousands and thousands of police officers, both in the prevention space and also in detecting crime and getting justice for victims. The detection rate for homicide in London is nearly 95%. You know, it's very high, and there's a lot of, I've just been speaking to detectives involved in the case. A huge amount of effort has gone in getting justice for victims and actually solving the homicides when they happen.
But the youngest.
Yes, that's really good and all of that, but still not good enough, my G. You know, is like, just because you can find out who committed the crime doesn't mean that you've been able to prevent crime. The whole problem here, for the police especially, is not to solve crimes, to prevent crime, is to enforce law and order to ensure that crimes are not taking place. So just the fact that you say 95% of homicides you get to know about, well, yeah, you get to know 95% of people that got killed, you know who did the situation. Especially here in London, bro. London is the most surveilled city in the world. Probably not anymore because of China, but still. So of course you're going to know who killed who did what, right? But the main problem is there is no prevention. Prevention is better than cure. You're not even curing. You're not even preventing. You're finding out who did it, and then what? You're just going to put them all in prison, when actually I'm sure at least 50% of those homicides that you mentioned, I'm sure 50% of those could have actually been prevented if real measures were in place to stop young people being in certain situations. All these statistics and all these numbers that you're throwing around, again, this is something, debate 101, interview 101, or PR 101. The first thing that you want to do as well to kind of free yourself from issues is you start throwing around fancy statistics that make you look good, even though they don't mean anything and have zero relevance to the argument that that is on the table. I don't know why he said, 95% of homicides are solved. What does that got to do with anything? The kids are still killing each other, so what's going on?
Effort has gone in getting justice for victims and actually solving the homicides when they happen.
But the youngest who are the victims of this are still disproportionately represented. Surely there needs to be a different strategy at this point.
You're right about the disproportionality, and it's the disproportionality we don't hear about so much. So young lads in London, and it's young black lads in London largely who are affected more than anyone else. And we need to really start understanding that and dealing with it. And from a policing point of view, it's represented.
This is it's nice that they mentioned this, and this is, I pray that the black community doesn't jump on this and try and say, these racists. He said it's disproportionately black lads that are in these situations. And the reason why I can finally pause this and say, yes, finally he's spoken like a human, is because he finally let out his personal. He said black lads. He didn't say black males or, of people of African descent. No, he said black lads. That's very specific. And the reason why that's specific is because he's finally saying something that is true. And this is something that I have to say. It is extremely alarming that the majority of the victims and perpetrators of youth crime are black youth. That there is a problem. And that there for me is where I also want to kind of bring it back to the community and bring it back to parenthood, because the police, as I've been going on to them for all of this, the police are not having these issues primarily with other races, primarily with the black race. So now this is what we have to understand. Are we to say that the problem is the whole youth, or is it a specific type of youth? And then if that is the case, why are those changes there? Why are those nuances present? And that will all come to family home, because different races come attached to different cultures. And that may be what is kind of making certain races not even pop up on the police's radar, and it's the black lads, as this guy said. So it kind of confirms to me that the black community has a serious issue with its parenting at the moment, okay? As much as we want to say that blacks have been marginalized and they're the kind of more disadvantaged, ethnic group, that is not the case, okay? There are a lot of ethnic groups in the UK, a lot of minorities, ethnic minorities, in the experiences, and obviously the reports and the results are not all the same. So at some point we need to kind of question, but why is it the black community? And it cannot be slavery. Bro, it cannot be slavery. And you can't keep blaming racism, because racism is there for everybody. We always talk about black when it comes to racism. Do you know how many the Chinese kids or the East Asian kids, how much racism they have to deal with on a constant basis? Everyone's always talking about the blacks and the browns, and they forget the rest. There's a lot of different races, not all just blacks and browns and whites. There's so much going on that you forget the rest. So again, if we focus on the fact that the nuance is the fact that these kids, black children, come from different homes to every other child, then let's go look into the home. As much as I also want to say that Met Police has a certain duty of care to kind of connect with this community of, kids that are most at risk, at the same time, we need to understand, why are these kids more at risk? Being black is not a good enough excuse. Black parenting, perhaps, is something that we can probably be looking at in this country. And black parenting is not to say that you're necessarily bad parents, but I'm thinking perhaps we need to understand what are the choices that these parents are making, what are the cultural biases that these parents are adhering to that are allowing them to leave their children to these statistics.
In our data, when we look at people who are both victims and who are charged with homicide, we see disproportionality, and it's something we've got to work really hard on dealing with. And again, that's not just the police, that's all of us working together in the public sector, but also in the private sector, and also families, NGOs, community groups, churches.
So there's clearly a lot of distrust still, for the police in some of the communities. So how do you tackle that?
We tackle that by building relationships. Now, you've spoken to Anthony earlier. Through the good times and through the bad times, the police will never leave, and the community groups will never leave. We've got to work together. The bigger picture is stopping young people getting hurt that you've just described. That's what the police care about. That's what the community groups care about. And when we realise that both our motivations are really good in tackling that, that's when we start to build trust. And you've seen here in Croydon, over the last 18 months, bridges being built between community groups and the police, because we realise that our motivation is to make a change and to tackle what you've described around teenage homicides.
And do you think that you've got enough people?
Again, so he can offer you details about, we working on country lives, working on this, on that. But then when he said we're doing great effort to connect with the community, where's the detail in that? What effort are you making to connect with the community? This is where I always catch a liar, It's like, yes, you're saying really fancy things and it sounds really great, but where's the detail? Why are you not telling me? What have you done? What are the initiatives that have been in place for you to connect with the community or to connect with parents? That's the main thing. I'm just looking for a little bit more detail so that I know you're not trying to finesse me. You get it?
Local communities really represented in the Met, so they're able to build those bridges, and so that people that they approach can have the confidence that their pleas will be taken seriously.
So along with getting violence down, being representative and building trust with the communities is our 1 and 2 objectives in London. A huge amount of effort is making us representative on recruiting more people from the communities that we serve, and we're making great strides in that area, and it's really, really encouraging. Thank you.
I mean, that's good-ish. Recruiting more people from the community into the Met sounds like, in theory, I think it sounds all right, but I don't think that's the solution. I think that's a really good thing. But again, you're just doing the exact same thing that is causing a lot of issues, which is you're employing by race. This is the thing. Let people come into policing naturally if they want to do that. Because basically what you're saying, then, if I'm not getting it wrong, is that you bribing people from the community to join the police or what? Because how are you ensuring that more people from the communities are joining your cause, like being employed by the Met? Because then what you're telling me is that definitely before, black people were not being employed or what? I don't understand. Just explain that for me, Bev.
So I've just been speaking to the local superintendent. We have a lot of extra officers on because it's New Year's Eve. We will be policing from now over the weekend in the parks, in the spaces where violence tends to peak. We'll be dealing with some of the parties where, again, violence tends to peak, and there is a significant uplift in resources, both in the geography and areas that we're concerned about, but also tackling some of the gangs, tackling some of the importation of drugs, some of the money launderers. The whole scale of it is aimed at bringing down violence, and that's happening right now.
I mean, again, I'm not a professional crime analyst or anything like this, but surely, this is just my very humble analysis, surely if, all these big criminals and all this stuff, if they are not the sort of people that are going to be out there selling their own drugs, right? Then you know that they need their servants, and their servants are going to be the youth. So why not actually just stop the youth from being involved in this? I think you need to cut the problem at the root, and the root is these little kids that are doing all these services for all these people. Okay. So the youth, they are where you kind of start to dismantle all of these institutions that take advantage of kids, and sell them dreams and recruit them into gangs. Start focusing on the kids. Forget about the adults for a little bit. Start dealing with the soldiers, and you'll see how you're going to make the generals crumble. I don't know. I think they just need a better strategy.
Knife crime prevention orders, these are orders that on conviction they can be given to an individual, or if there's a lot of intelligence that they carry knives, and they're right at their early days at the moment. So we've got many of applications through the court, and it's impossible to say whether they are effective or not, but we're testing that, and that's just another one of the many things that we're doing. Knife crime prevention orders, we're dealing with people who market knives, people who sell knives. We are taking huge amounts off the street. So virtually from every angle you can imagine, we're tackling the violent crime associated with both guns and knives.
And how can you reassure parents that their children will be safe tonight?
Well, what I'd say to everyone is there's a huge police presence out tonight. But if you have concerns, talk to your kids. Make sure they're not carrying knives. Make sure they're not hanging around with kids carrying knives. And if you do have a concern that they've got a knife under their bed, or their friend's got a knife under their bed, that's what Crime Stoppers is for. It's independent. You're anonymous. You can make the call and we can make the change. And that's the point. We don't know who has knives, but we can find out, and we can stop them hurting someone or being hurt. And, don't listen to it from me. There's an incredible campaign that I'd encourage all of your viewers to watch. It's called Hard Calls Saves Lives. And it's from 5 or 6 mums here in London who've lost their sons to knives. And it's them saying, please, look, call Crime Stoppers if someone's carrying a knife. It's a hard call, but it can save a life from a child that might get killed, but also from the child that might end up being incarcerated for years and years and years. So I think there's a number of factors. Now, it's worth saying that even for knife injury under 25s, it's significantly down. It's 30 or 40% down. But for teenagers in particular, there's probably 3 things operating. One is the glorification of knives on social media, and credibility, and people cussing each other on social media. We're seeing it again and again and again, and we're taking videos off YouTube all the time. But it is incredibly provocative. At the same time, we've got changing drug markets and the emergence of county lines in the last few years that we're really focusing on. And the other one is just the amount of people carrying knives, the amount of young people carrying knives. It's got to be unacceptable, and it's got to be unacceptable for them. And it's no good me saying that, but it is really important that everyone else also says it. And that's why we're out there, and that's why we are taking knives off the street. But it's probably those three things intersecting to cause the peak in teenage homicides.
Fair enough.
Was that a number of things can happen if they speak to Crime Stoppers, if they don't want to speak to the police, then the intervention can go through Crime Stoppers. But I would ask them to reach out to people in the community who they know and trust, or to speak to the police, because I can say that police can be trusted, and say, look, I'm concerned here, what can you do? We could make referrals. You know, there are youth groups out there are NGOs, there's people like Anthony King who represent a number of different groups who could intervene with that individual. I mean, the main message to a parent who's concerned about a child is if their child is carrying a knife, that's when they're going to get hurt. So do whatever you can to intervene to stop those knives being carried.
What is the Met going to do next year to make sure next year isn't another record breaking?
The ambition of the Commissioner and the Metropolitan Police is unwavering around violence. It will remain the number one focus with building trust with communities. So next year we will be focusing our efforts in area where knife crime is the highest. We'll be problem solving, we'll be pushing into schools, we'll still be taking knives off the streets, but we'll be dealing with those drivers of violence as well, with drugs, guns and money. And we have Operation Orochi, which is tackling county lines. We're upscaling that considerably, so that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. If you're engaged in county lines, the chances are you're going to get caught. And
good.
There's an absolute laser-like focus on county lines and violence here in London next year.
Final two questions, please.
Why is it going to work?
So the violence in London, if you heard the Mayor's speech just before Christmas as well, is not up, it's down considerably. So robberies are down about 40%. Knife stabbing for under 25s is down about 40%. Total murders is down. As I mentioned, the bad bit is the tragedy of these young men being killed here on the streets of London, and teenagers. And why that bit is getting worse is that I mentioned the changing drug market, some of the social media videos, often drill videos that are encouraging it, localised videos where people are given to come on to another group, and kids carrying knives, and that becoming more acceptable in those circles, and that's what we have to stop.
Final question, please.
Anything you want to say to the family of this 15-year-old boy?
Well, to the family of this 15-year-old lad, and to the family of the young man who was killed in Hillingdon, you know, the poignancy of the time of year, got teenagers myself, all I can say is that the Met is reaching out to you. We'll do everything we can to bring those offenders to justice. We can't imagine the pain that you are going through, but you must know that we are absolutely committed to bringing those offenders to justice, but also to tackling violence across the whole of London, so that more mums and dads and brothers and sisters don't have to be in a position that they're in right now. And I can't imagine the unbearable pain that they must be in right now.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Well, interesting. I mean, a lot of
A
waffle.
13-year-old.
Hold on, we're going to watch this in a second. A lot of waffle, but I guess they're trying. They're trying something. I know it's not an easy job. I know we can all criticize and we can all, say that they could be doing better and they should do this, that, and the other. But it is not an easy job. I just hope that they kind of use better common sense to understand how they actually want to connect with the youth. If they're talking about social media, if they're talking about all these sort of things as being factors that are actually causing kids to be in these situations more easily, then we need to start, infiltrating those systems and start understanding that you're going to connect with the kids by social media, by doing what they like, by, not instead of banning drill, starting to kind of deal with drill weapons a bit more. I don't know. Just think of very creative ways to connect with the youth, because right now you guys are losing. Really, big time. Big time. Anyways, make sure that if you're here and you're watching, you are dropping a little like. Let me know your thoughts on what we've been watching so far. And subscribe, because you know we're going to be doing quite a lot of these. Right now we've gone live. I'm going to be trying to go live every single day if I can. We've got a little setup. We're trying to evolve and upgrade our system. So you know there's a lot coming. So make sure that you're staying tuned and that you pay attention to Mischief Managed Media. Drop that little subscribe. Drop that little comment. Share. You know, plenty of controversy to go around. You know how it is. I dish this out for free. Cool. Anyway, so this one here is a child of 4. Finally, this is not just black children. Okay, we're going to be looking at a different type of youth, and let's see what this is all about.
A 13-year-old girl stabs 2 teachers and then a pupil at her school in Ammanford, West Wales in April.
First and foremost, this is not even just a London problem, bro. A teenage girl stabs 2 adults, teachers, in school in Wales.
2024. It was headline news level horror, and among the first to respond,
you don't think, you just go into autopilot.
Deputy Head Teacher Kerry Myers.
Your initial reaction, so for me, was just, what can I do in this situation and how can we get people treated, and also the person who was involved, move her to a place where she's isolated from everybody else.
Crazy.
What were the warning signs? Or were there any warning signs?
There's been warning signs in schools for the last sort of 10 years where behaviour has gradually got worse.
The victims survived and Kerry left the school soon after. But it was not the first assault he'd seen in his career.
Have you been attacked?
I've been punched. When I was attacked,
Punched.
It was literally asking somebody, can you stand to one side so we can have a conversation about your uniform? And the next thing I was punched in the back of the head. So
Wow.
asking students to follow simple instructions like that, whereas in years gone by, having perfect uniform would have been an expectation.
Yeah, it's
Now
nothing.
correcting uniform, which isn't perfect, can lead to an attack happening.
We've been investigating school violence for several months now, and it's clear it's something that no school is immune from. Head teachers can't make this go away entirely, but they do have choices about how to respond.
Morning, gentlemen. Jackets here. Morning.
We're at the Duston School, Northampton, where head teacher Sam Strickland has the sort of focus on behaviour you'd expect from someone who's written 3 books about it.
There are certain behaviours that we simply will not condone if they ever were to arise. Physical harm towards a member of staff, physical harm towards one of your peers, we would absolutely suspend or potentially permanently exclude if we had to.
See, so basically this is the thing, okay? Let's go and have a conversation about the education system. As much as I support, and obviously I will not stand against the education system, I do have to say that at times we also need to kind of question leadership in schools and the implementation of strict behavior policies. Some of the best schools in this country in terms of actually being high achievers are also the schools that have got the strictest behavior management policies, okay? And that is because they do understand, especially when there's a large number of children or young people in the same space at the same time, you need to have very strict and consistent strategies to prevent behavior from escalating, because you're dealing with a lot of children, a lot of emotions, a lot of hormones. And there are certain behaviors that should never be tolerated in a school where there's direct and strong consequences if those things do happen, i.e. this sort of attitude and physical harm to members of staff and even towards each other. You know, I mean, let me hear first what he has to say before I start giving too much source. Hold on.
Then have is a calm learning environment where teachers can teach and children can learn. This morning we are looking at knife crime again and keeping yourself safe.
In 2023, a teenager from a neighbouring school was fatally stabbed. Here at Duston, it was a moment to confront the issue.
Thank you. Okay, so and this is again, you got to be proactive with these things. So this head teacher realized this happened just next door. Before I wait for the situation to reach my door, I'm going to address it and I'm going to stop it. Okay? So prevention is better than cure. You do not need to make the mistake to learn from a mistake. You can learn from the mistakes of others. You can learn from other people's experience. So it makes no sense for certain schools to already be aware of the fact that knife crime is a massive deal, that children starting to carry knives into school, and there's no preventative measures being put in place to kind of stop this, you know? So this is actually good. Be proactive. Be proactive. If you know that you're in a neighborhood, especially that is quite prone to knife crime or to just crime in general because, you know, gangs and all this sort of stuff, bro, start putting those preventative measures in place. Put a little metal detector in your school. There shouldn't be, you'd rather have a metal detector in your school where the kids are going to have to walk and be, you know, searched, whatever, than to have them be stabbed by a peer. You see? Sometimes, you know, people don't want to do the most difficult thing, but sometimes the most difficult thing to do is the right thing to do.
Lots of our students knew this particular boy, and we felt the need that we needed to push this idea so that they knew that we knew that things were going on and that we could try and keep them safe as much as possible outside of school.
And it's really important that you're aware of the dangers and consequences of knife crime.
These can be uncomfortable conversations for 15-year-olds, but here they're not shied away from.
There's definitely a lot of teenagers that I think are like getting involved with this stuff, and I think people are struggling to talk about it as well.
Why is that?
I think they know that it's not a good thing to be doing, but they're carrying knives because it makes them feel safe.
Especially like...
You see, and that's, again, it's something that is really key, and I think it's so important that, you know, people start taking note of this. Kids need to feel safe to share, you know, and when they start talking, when they start sharing, you get to learn a lot about their world that usually is invisible to us. She just said something really key, that this is something that is very common, but no one really wants to talk about it. And that a lot of kids are carrying these weapons because it helps them make them feel safe. Because if somebody got stabbed, then it could be you the next time. So what are you going to do? You're going to have something so that if, should the situation perhaps arise, then you are prepared. Now, would parents or would the schools even know this if they're not giving kids the space to speak? No, they wouldn't. So again, if there's a lot of these situations going on, if you as a school are not actually aware of what is happening from the horse's mouth, where the kids are actually the ones telling you, then there's no point. Because then you're just speculating on what you think is the problem, and you're not giving a voice to the people that actually know what the problem is. So in these situations, yes, I think, okay, like I can go and, I mean, since we're talking about schools, I can complain about the schools and say that one of the main issues with schools right now is the fact that they don't want to look like the bad guy. But sometimes it takes you looking like the bad guy for the solution to be found. And that means creating strict behavior policy measures, meaning that there's certain things that are just a complete and utter no-no, and parents need to be aware of this, and parents need to also be compliant in this. And then two, in the same hand that you're kind of putting these very strict boundaries in place, and mind you, kids actually love rules and they love boundaries, and they feel like when people are strict with a balance of being open, they understand that, yes, you have boundaries, but you still want to connect with me, you still want the best for me. This school is great. You're giving the kids the room to speak about things, but also letting them know that there's just things that are not going to run. You know, that you can have that balance. You don't just need to be strict and be stiff and boring. You can be very strict in the sense that these are our strict boundaries, but also speak to the kids and say, okay, cool, I need some volunteers. Let's talk about knife crime. What is it about? Why are kids doing this? We don't understand. Please tell us, and see how quickly these kids are going to open up, because you've given them the room to speak. You've given them the floor, and they will tell you. But if you don't respect these young people to then listen to their voices, trust me, not much change is going to happen.
In particular, the stigmas like men can't talk and men can't cry and stuff, so they feel like they haven't got that support network of people they can actually talk to. So they might need to, they feel like they have to carry a knife in order to protect themselves because they can't express their emotions and like feelings in other ways.
Do people your age carry knives?
They could do, but
yeah,
you never know really.
Yeah, like it depends if they're like showing off or not. Yeah.
Is that something that worries you?
Sometimes, because you don't know what people like are capable of, so it's kind of scary.
Do you pick up on like what their fears are about this? And I mean, because a lot of the conversation recently has been about young people like suppressing
Absolutely.
what's going on.
We are finding that more, to be completely honest. We have a really good system within school to obviously safeguard our children, but even having one trusted adult within the school that a child feels they can go and speak to, I think is important.
We don't have a major issue in this school, but we are trying to take the bull by the horns and be on a front footing.
They are taking every precaution here.
Do you have a plan in place? Should someone bring a knife into this school?
Yes, so we have a lockdown procedure, and that can either be a partial lockdown, where if for argument's sake somebody came into our main car park with a weapon, we would partially lock the school down by closing all of the doors to the actual school itself. If there was the necessity for a full-scale lockdown because there was actually an intruder in the building itself, staff are trained to barricade their classroom doors. Children know exactly where they need to go. We've had to simulate and rehearse these practice lockdowns procedures so everybody knows what to do in the event of, hopefully, heaven forbid, something that we don't ever want to see happening in a school.
And you know what's crazy? It's like, I think that in the UK or all over the world, people have been judging, US mass school shootings, not understanding that the UK, guns are illegal. So the likelihood of a child getting access to a gun is a lot more less likely, right? However, school stabbings is something that does happen. And don't forget, they're also stabbing staff members. This one here. There was another stabbing in London as well, where a child stabbed a teacher, or they also stabbed another one. So school stabbings are actually something that is becoming a bit more of a expected occurrence. So really, this is why we now need to address the fact that, the UK, we need to actually really look deep down inside ourselves to understand that, we are pointing the fingers to act like we're the civilized nation and that the US is the crazy one, when really, you're just the US's little cousin. You're doing the exact same thing as the US, but except you just don't have guns, It's so scary that this is a reality where you have to do lockdown drills, when before it was just a fire drill. That's the biggest danger that a child could probably encounter in school. Now is knives. And if that is the case, again, why are not schools starting to do, a little bit more searching? It's okay. This is the thing. School is a place for you to feel safe, but school is also a place for you to know that there's rules, there's expectations, and there's just stuff that you do not do.
No talking now and on me.
And that is what it's come to. Stabbing drills in even the safest schools. Praying there's never a day where it's not a test.
Crazy.
So what's really going on in and around our classrooms? Well, tonight our fact check team can reveal alarming new exclusive figures on violent crimes at schools. Violent crimes include a range of offences, from physical assaults and making threats to kill to robberies and carrying weapons. We've discovered there were at least 21,000 violent crimes at schools in 2024. These are crimes that were actually recorded by the police, with just over half of forces in England and Wales able to give us this information. So clearly the true number will be higher still. That's equivalent to more than 100 violent crimes every school day. Now, these would include crimes committed by adults as well as young people. Over time, then, we can see just how entrenched this problem is. Here are forces who could supply us with 6 years' worth of figures. Around 18,000 violent crimes in schools in 2019, dipping during the pandemic, before peaking at over 23,000 in 2023, and still remaining high, mind, in 2024. Now, let's focus in on knife crimes at schools.
That's a lot. 20,000 crimes. Okay, that was just crimes in general by adults and children. But now let's look at the actual facts, for the figures for knife crimes at schools.
Specifically, there were at least 631 knife crimes recorded at schools last year. That's equivalent to 16 knife crimes every school week. And most shockingly, we can reveal there were at least 150 stabbings or other knife crimes which caused injuries recorded at schools last year. Now,
isn't that crazy? And so this is the thing. I would probably love to check out the figures for how many school mass school shootings happened in the US. But here, we're talking about knife crimes causing injuries, 150 in 2024. That means that 150 schools, or perhaps maybe if there's a repeat of the same school, but likely 150 schools experienced somebody using a knife to cause injury, probably stabbing, in 2024. Isn't that alarming? Let's say, even if we want to compare it to the US, let's say the equivalent, this is probably equivalent to like maybe 75 mass school shootings, because obviously this is injury. And some of these probably did result in death, because I know some of them have. So isn't that so scary? And then the worst part is that we're going to be trying to point fingers at everybody, but not look at what is happening inside the home where these kids are actually doing this. So let me explain something to you. If your child is in any way, shape or form involved with anything to do with knives, weapons or drugs, there are very telling signs, whether he's the culprit or the perpetrator or victim. If your child is a victim of anything to do with weapons, all this sort of stuff, that he's going to be an anxious child. He's going to withdraw because he's going to be in his head the whole time, he or she in their head the whole time, because they're concerned, they're worried, they're anxious, they're scared. So they're not going to be talking because they're going to be replaying the anxious scenario over in their head. So withdrawal from a child, you should know. If your kid is withdrawing, there might be something wrong. So try and connect, go and speak. And depending on how the conversation goes, you'll be able to see if is the child trying to hide something or not. A lot of the time, I don't feel like parents are genuinely trying to connect with their children. So they're asking the questions, getting whatever the answer is, but not prompting or probing for further information. That's on the victim side. If your child is a perpetrator, if your child is somebody that is holding weapons or anything like this, their whole entire way of being is going to change, because first and foremost, it's hot to be holding a weapon. So they're going to have a little bit of anxiety in them. Not every single adolescent knows actually how to act well enough to be able to fool their parents on these sort of things. If you believe that your child is really that capable, then there's other telling signs. If your child is holding weapons, or if your child is involved with anything to do with weapons, they're also likely to be involved in other things, because you don't hold weapons for no reason unless you're trying to be about that life. Which means that you now need to start looking out for new things that they're getting. Who are their friends? This is another problem. A lot of the time, parents are not paying attention to who their kids' friends are and who those kids' parents are as well. So when you do your due diligence as a parent, you'll be able to start seeing some of the red flags that are just there very quietly waving in the background, that if you're not paying attention, if you're not scanning for them, you're never going to find them. Because it is very alarming that there's been 150 knife crimes causing injury. These are violent crimes within schools. It doesn't seem like a large number because we're thinking that there's thousands of schools and all of this, but 150 incidents where knife crime actually has caused injury is very concerning. And this is not even counting the ones where kids are then doing this outside of school, not actually within the school premises. It's very scary.
Equivalent to 4 a week during term time. Now, these could include crimes involving other sharp objects like needles or glass. They could also include crimes where a knife was involved, but the attack victim was injured another way. And again, the true numbers across England and Wales will be even higher. Well, we put our revelations to the Education Secretary for England, Bridget Phillipson.
Oh, and that wasn't across England and Wales. That was for where? Hold on, let me see.
Another way. And again, the true numbers across England and Wales will be even higher. Well, we put our revelations to the Education Secretary for England, Bridget Phillipson.
The figures are deeply concerning, and sadly what I hear from a lot of teachers and school leaders is that we also see too much low-level disruption and really big challenges around behaviour. We're going to be setting out more very soon on the further steps we intend to take to support schools on behaviour management within schools. I mean, they have our full backing in taking necessary steps to protect children and to keep them safe.
We've also heard from the...
So, behaviour management. Now, this is the thing with behaviour management, and I'll tell you why most people fail when it comes to behaviour management. Fundamental rule of education and even behavior management, okay? Kids don't learn from people they don't like, okay? One of the big problems that I think also schools are going to encounter when it comes to behavior management is that a lot of the people that are, in charge of education, they're not very likable. Okay. Why? Because there's still this kind of very wrong perception of I'm the adult and therefore I'm more important, or I'm the adult and therefore I'm the all-knowing being. There needs to be a certain balance. It's not to say that children are to be respected on the same level as adults, because obviously we need to kind of keep a certain level of authority for members of staff and for the people that are meant to keep the school in check and in order. However, a lot of the time, much like what I mentioned earlier, a lot of the time, children are not being given the voice. And what I mean by that is that they need to also feel like they're able to express things, because don't forget, teenagers are not children. They're not babies. They've got their own, they've started forming their own vision of the world. And they've come to realize that adults overall, majority of adults are also very stupid and make a lot of mistakes. Adults, just because they're older and they have a certain authority, does not mean that they're the wisest in the room. Meaning that as teachers, we need to also start learning to respect teenagers, to understand that you can enforce your authority, but don't believe that you're better than this child, because this child is very sensitive. And the moment that they feel that you think you have some sort of advantage over them, that's it. They're going to go against you. Unless you know how to foster that relationship where you can be cool with them, but also still have those strict boundaries. On the flip side, we then also have those teachers that are just, they don't have the personality to do behavior management. They don't understand that with young people, you have to have a strength about you. So behavior management when it comes to schools is very difficult, because not everybody has what it takes to do it off their own back. So what is most important is not behavior management, it's behavior policy. And that means that if you have strict behavior policy measures in place, you're able to filter out the children that are struggling to conform to the system. And it is outside in alternative provision or in alternative education that you then start the restorative work to then deal with behavior management, because then you're able to actually employ the people and delegate them, the people that have got real skills in behavior management, delegate them to those roles. Now, the problem is Secretary of Education, or whatever your job title is, a lot of people not being paid enough to do the work that most people don't want to do. Dealing with children that have got behavioral issues or SEMH needs is one of the most difficult things to do. Not everybody can do it. And that is why the government needs to start applying a little bit more importance in funding those sites, because that is now going to be probably the biggest spending for the government, which will be trying to keep up with the consequences of poor behavior management and exclusion, suspensions, and all of this. More kids are dropping out of school now because of being excluded than ever before. And that is something that is very serious. So I'm just saying, forget about behavior management within schools. Think about behavior policy. That's slightly different. Management is how people deal with things. Behavior policy is what the rules are. Behavior management now needs to be focused where you're able to filter out the children that not be able to comply with the rules, and they have their own special place, because you cannot do all of this with kids that have got extreme behavior that are likely to bring weapons to school, for example. You cannot deal with them in the same room as the kids that are able to follow the rules, because you're doing them a disservice. You're not allowing these children to feel safe in certain spaces, and you're also not allowing the children that have got the needs to be having those needs met.
Government, who said any form of violence in schools was completely unacceptable, and they would continue working on ways of dealing with challenging behaviours over the coming year. Police forces in Scotland and Northern Ireland didn't provide us with figures.
Of course they didn't. Okay, listen, just let me give you my final thought on these things. First and foremost, there are schools out here in this country that are amazing, that their behavior policy and behavior management is next to none. So, Education Secretary, the main and most important thing that you need to do is to bring head teachers together, okay, from the top 10 best schools when it comes to behavior. So basically the schools that have got the least amount of exclusions and suspensions yearly, and get them to sit down on a panel and write down what it is that they have done to ensure that they can get to those places. And this is not private schools. These are public funded schools that I'm talking about. The public funded schools with the least behavior problems, the representatives need to write down how they got there. Then when you know the solution for all of those top 10 schools, you're able to consolidate it into a 10-point document, perhaps, or maybe a little bit more, I don't care, where you're then able to use the methodology that those schools have applied to trickle it down to the masses. Because a lot of schools are out of their depth. They do not know what they're doing, and they're dealing with very difficult demographic of student population. So, I'm just saying, more collaboration is needed. A lot more authority is needed, and parents, it starts at home. So you need to start looking at your children and pay more attention to them to understand what is happening in their world and how can I guide them through it. Otherwise, they're going to get lost and they're going to do horrible things, because an idle mind is the devil's playground. And on that note, my people then, thank you very much for joining me again today. Make sure that you're leaving a like, a little comment, share, subscribe, and return to Mischief Managed Media's page again, because we're going to have a multitude of reactions on different topics to discuss. It is not just going to be me, Mr. Nalva. We're going to have also other familiar faces, so make sure that you stay tuned. Until then, I'm going to try and finish this puzzle. I've had a lot of progress. By the next time I see you, I'm sure that I'll be probably done and having a new one. So wish me luck. Bye-bye.